Mr. Scary Studios. Number 1.
I am a Brazilian guy, about 20 years old, today, but around 12 when the story happened. Just a normal school day, boring subjects, annoying people, the usual. I come from a good family with somewhat good financial situation, so at the time, I had with me not only a Motorola V3 cell phone, which was like top tier back at that time, also uncommon for kids to have one. Every day after school, it would take a while for my father to pick me up with his car, which used to be a silver Meriva. It was also the same car that he used to drive me to school with. That being said, one day I was waiting for my dad to pick me up, and I did so by playing some new Super Mario Brothers on my DS, which I of course took to school. That's when my cell phone rang, and I heard the voice of a somewhat cheery man saying, "Hey Pete, it's your Uncle Paul. I'm here to pick you up. For your dad. Come outside," the man said, and I simply answered with "okay," and left through the gate. The thing is, it was still early, way earlier than my dad usually picks me up, when I thought about it. I went back inside and waited for another call, and it came fast. "Where are you?" the man asked. I replied with, "Yeah, I don't see you," and he sighed on the other side, giving me instructions. "I'm with the same blue Corolla that I dropped you today in the morning, Pete." "Come on," he said, and then hanged up. He was getting impatient. My 12-year-old brain processed what was happening and connected the dots. The thing is, I had no uncles with a name that started with P. They were all A's. Also, couldn't be my mom's brother because he's been dead for a long time now. Last thing was that no one called me Pete, an American nickname, but my family, those being my brothers, sister, and my parents. I started to get nervous and talked to my friends about it. After all, some of them were still there. Basically, all they said was, "Yeah, tell him to go and fuck himself." Now, I'm not one that likes to cuss, so I went to the principal for help. On my way there, the man calls again, and I pick up. This time, he was angry. "Why the fuck are you taking so long, you son of a bitch? Blue Corolla, are you brain dead? Get out here with that stupid video game of yours." And then he hung up. I instantly froze. Thoughts rushed through my head, such as, "They are trying to kidnap me. Is this real?" And so on. I started running to the principal's office. I was getting nervous and I called my dad, which answered in a hurry. I took a deep breath, not to seem scared. "Dad, did you by any chance send someone named Paul here to pick me up?" I asked, my heart pounding to hear what I wanted, and that's what I got. "No, whoever is calling you, do not go outside." "I'll be right there," he said and hung up. I went inside the office bursting in tears, asking for someone to get the man that was probably out there waiting for me in a blue Corolla. I gave the teacher and the principal the number he was calling from, and they called to no avail. So they decided to go outside and check the blue Corolla by themselves. I stayed in the office and got another call. This time I picked it up, and my hands were shaking, but I knew he couldn't harm me. "What's taking you so long, you little shit?" he screamed. "Listen, I know you are not my uncle. You have no idea of which car I come to school in, and you are trying to kidnap me for whatever reason." "I'm not going outside," I screamed. Again, he said quietly. I screamed a what and called him a sick and crazy. And he said, "You are not coming out again? You've been out, and you just know better. Fuck you," he screamed before laughing like a maniac and hanging up. I held my phone on my hands and stared at nothingness. for a while until the teacher and the principal came back saying that there was no such thing as the blue Corolla outside. Shortly after, my dad arrived and I was escorted to a taxi with him. The guards and I sat there and did nothing. As my dad talked on the phone to the track the number that he has been calling from and find someone named Paul. I took the rest of the week off school, and eventually I'd have nightmares about being outside school and being grabbed. After this happened, I went back to school the next week and instantly joined the Kendo Club in order to know something about self-defense, especially if I got the chance to be armed with something. Years later, my mom and dad divorced. Saw that coming though. After all, when this episode happened, I was living with my older brothers because they didn't want to involve me in their fights. However, once I came back home with my mom, I found out that they divorced because my father had around 5 lovers in 5 different places. And one even called my mom saying, "You won. I have tried everything to keep him for me, but you won." Or at least that's what my mother says. I wonder, could all this kidnap story be part of a scheme from one of these lovers to steal my dad from us? If it was that, then that just makes me uncomfortable to know that a human being is capable of probably killing a child for whatever they want. Good thing is that today I'm 20, a teacher and regional champion of Kendo, and I have never heard of Paul ever again. But I still wonder, what would have happened to me if I didn't have the decency to go back inside and kept looking for him? So, Uncle Paul, let's not meet.
Number 2.
This happened about a year ago. A little info about myself. I am a 19-year-old female. I am also very small. I am 4'11" and weigh 95 pounds soaking wet. No, I don't have an eating disorder. My 11th grade year of high school is when this event took place. It was within the first 2 weeks of school, and I was a bus rider. We had a new bus driver. Me being a very social person, I always thanked him for his service and was always super nice to him, and I believe that's where I messed up. One day after school, I was riding the bus. I was always one on the first to be dropped off. So when I realized I had been on the bus for an extra 10 minutes, I was a little curious and just chalked it up to the fact that the bus routes get changed all the time. At this point, I have been on the bus for about 30 minutes, and there are 2 kids left on the bus, an old friend of mine and of course myself. This friend of mine lived in a very remote location, and there was absolutely no cell service out there. So when we dropped her off, I couldn't call my parents to let them know that what was happening. As we were leaving this area, the bus driver pulled into a cemetery and told me to look out my window. When I did, I saw a torn to shreds baby deer. My whole body went into shutdown mode. I didn't know what to do. My initial reaction was to pull out my phone and call my parents. When I remembered I had no signal, I immediately got up and ran back to the bus. Keep in mind, I'm the only kid on this bus. We sat by that deer for a good 10 minutes, and the whole time I'm in the back and my blood is absolutely boiling. It was everything in me to not run off the bus and look for help. When we started to leave, he just started talking about random stuff, like how he loves his wife and loves his new job as a bus driver. The whole time he's barely paying any attention to the road. I get on my phone and go to Google Maps. Thank God they work, even without service. I realized my house was 15 minutes from where we were, and I was super excited to be going home soon. Boy, was I wrong. This jackass then decides to take a shit ton of back roads and keep talking to me. The time while I'm sitting in silence, still with no service on my phone. So about 20 to 25 minutes later, I start seeing landmarks that are around my neighborhood. I look down and there's service on my phone. I immediately call my dad. He doesn't answer. Not even 2 minutes later, we pull into my neighborhood, and he drops me off at my house. I wanted to run, but for some reason I just stood in my yard and stared at him, frozen in fear. Eventually he pulled off, and when he did, I took off running into my house. My parents were in their room freaking out about where I was. My mom started grilling me about where I was and what I was doing. I get out of school around 2:15 and got home around 4:45-ish on a normal day. I would get home at like 2:30, so my mom was very upset. My dad's phone was dead because he tried to call so many times. I began to cry and tell them that everything that happened. My dad was furious and called my school and used my mom's phone to record the whole conversation between my dad, the principal, and myself. My principal was extremely pissed off about what had taken place, as was my dad. My mother was just cuddling me, asking me if I was okay and if anything else happened. I didn't go back to school for about 2 days. There was no formal investigation, however. The school handled it themselves. The bus driver denied everything, and when they checked the camera footage, the camera happened to be covered by a sticker or something of the sort. Thankfully, nobody believed the bus driver, and he was fired. I haven't rode the bus ever since. I know this isn't as creepy as most stories, but it's mine, and it's still the most bone-chilling experience I have ever had. Also, I'm sorry about the format. I'm on an iPad at work writing this. So creepy bus driver, let's not meet again for your sake.